Chapter number 10, Indian economy. It's nothing but the history content. What are the things we are doing till date? Okay. So directly I'll go for the topic. It's actually an interesting topic, I would say. Good theory also, but still it's an interesting topic. Okay. What I'm doing here is I have taken our status of Indian economy into different segment. One is pre-independence period, that is between or not between before 1947. Okay. So if I go for the timeline, before 1947, between 1947 to 1950, that is the period we were waiting for our own constitution. Then after 1950 till 1991, I would say, because after this only there was a big change in Indian economy. Okay, so we were introducing this LPG concept, and after this we'll go for till current date. So if we talk about pre-independence period, actually, we have to go backdated. Actually, it's given from 17th century, but it's given here from 1850 to 1947. How many years British were ruling அப்படின்னு கேட்டா டெஃபினெட்லி அது ஒரு ஃப்ளோல 200 years சொல்லுவாங்க 200 வருஷமா ஆனாங்கன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க ஓகே பட் இஃப் யூ செக் ஓவர் ஹியர் இட்ஸ் நாட் 200 இட்ஸ் ஜஸ்ட் லைக் 100 years. Why is this 200? It's nothing but 100 plus 100. நல்லா தான் இருக்கு சொல்றது. See, this 100 is directly, we were under British rule. This 100 is East India was ruling us. East India Company might have heard of East India Company. East India was. So, if you actually speak about the British rule, this is the original period they were ruling us. Okay. We have heard something called as Ordinance, Act, Bill, and all, these are the things you know. Have you heard of this term called as treaty? கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கீங்களா த்ரெட்டின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கீங்களா What does this treaty means? It's nothing but an agreement. Okay, it's nothing but an agreement entered between two nations. Entered between two nations. One country and another country entering into a type of an agreement, and they say, okay, for example, if you pay tax in that country, you need not pay tax over here. We have something called as double taxation avoidance agreement, DTA. Okay. So if there is an agreement between the two nations and that agreement which becomes a law that the country follows, is not between the two nations alone. Usually treating about வந்து ரெண்டு நேஷனுக்குள்ள நடந்தா அந்த treating யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. It need not be exactly two nations alone. Okay. So in such a way, East India Company was first to ruling India. That's for 100 years, 100 plus years. Okay. After that, 1850, East India Company gave the ruling to British government. ஸோ பிரிட்டிஷ் கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து ஈஸ்ட் இந்தியா கிட்ட கேட்கறாங்க இந்த மாதிரி கண்ட்ரோல் வந்து நாங்க கம்ப்ளீட்டா கவர்மெண்ட் கண்ட்ரோல் கொடுத்துருங்க earlier it was under the East India Company's power. தென் பிரிட்டிஷ் வந்து கேட்டவொன்னு என்ன பண்றாங்கன்னா இங்க கம்ப்ளீட்டா வந்து ஒரு ட்ரெட்டி எழுதி கொடுப்பாங்க. தட்ஸ் அபவுட் திஸ் ப்ரீ இண்டிபெண்டன்ஸ் பீரியட் வி ஆர் ஃபோக்கஸிங் ஆன் 1850 to 1947. So if you check over here, actually it started where? 17th century. 200 years before the 17th century then. So it's the largest economy of the ancient and medieval period. We are so very prosperous. We were so very self-reliant, which means what? We were not relying on other nations. We were completely reliant on our own. And we were controlling almost between 1/3 and 1/4 of the world's wealth. Ada India வந்து அவ்வளோ like so fertile land, fertile country சொல்லுவாங்க. Okay. There are so many villages and cities. Don't think this as a subject or something like that. Just feel the subject. Okay, feel this topic because it's completely on India. கொஞ்சம் முடிஞ்ச நீங்க visualize பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம். Okay. So we were having, see, this is this period. Okay, before 1947 we were talking. We were having villages and cities, self-sufficient villages and cities. Okay, probably the population may be low, and they were representing centers of commerce, pilgrimage, administration. All the areas or all the fields were covered. And cities were giving more opportunities. So compared to villages, cities were giving more opportunities for diverse occupations, trades, and gainful economic activities. That's why we say it's very prosperous. Gainful economic activities, not just we do it for ourselves. On the madri illa. We were gaining so many things. If you go for the village side, the structure of the village was like simple division of labor. Okay, probably they will divide as per the race, as per the class, as per the gender. Okay, probably they say தாழ்த்தப்பட்ட ஜாதி உயர்த்தப்பட்ட ஜாதி. Actually, இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சின்ன diversification நால தான் நமக்கு என்ன ஆச்சுன்னா we were under and somebody else's rule. Okay, the kingdom rule and the day மாறிட்டே போச்சு. So what was the role is it acts as a built-in mechanism of both economic and social differentiation. Not only economic side, when we talk about India, we are taking India as a diversified culture, having diversified culture. That's why we talk here about social differentiation. Okay. Main occupation always agriculture. Thampa. So it's a dominant occupation and main source of livelihood for majority of the people is agriculture only. And not only agriculture, we had alternate occupation. Even though agriculture was the main, we had alternate agriculture, which was many artisans were there, expert knowledge இருக்கிறவங்க, superior quality, fine handicrafts and textiles, cotton எல்லாம் வரும்போது நம்ம அடிச்சுக்க முடியாது. Ancient economy philosophy போனீங்கன்னா, we have to just touch this concept called as Arthasastra because we see what do you mean by economy is how we are ruling it. That's about economies. But we need to go for this Arthasastra. So Arthasastra is the ancient Indian economic philosophy contributed to Kautilya. Chanakya rules சொல்லுவாங்க. எது இருந்தாலும் Chanakya touch பண்ணிடுவாங்க. Okay. So this is between this period. Okay. This is more of data. 321 to 296 BCE. So it's backwards. அதனால reverse போகும். See, this is 1850 to 1947. Forwards la போற மாதிரி இருக்கா. In the days வந்து reverse ல போகும். Before Christ and after Christ. So this is before Christ era. So it will go backwards. Okay. So it's recognized as one of the most important works and it's a handbook for King Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of Mauryan Empire. இதுல எப்படி tactics follow பண்ணோம் அதெல்லாமே இருக்கும். Again, if you find time in the future, not immediately, probably after the interview, you might feel like you will have a lot of time for final exam preparation. 2 years articles பண்ணணும் இல்லையா? So அந்த டைம்ல lot of time will get. அந்த டைம்ல இந்த book எல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் படிச்சு பாருங்க. ரொம்ப சூப்பரா ரிட்டர்ன் ஆகும். Okay. Contents, what it had. Okay. Directives as how to reign over the kingdom, எப்படி rule பண்றது. And not only that, it provides advices, advocates political action, ignoring ethics. Beautiful, இல்ல? நீங்க once ethical பாத்தீங்கன்னா business பண்ண முடியும். Business in the sense that you cannot rule a country. So you cannot go ethical side. So you should ignore ethics and you have to enter in a political action. Then only it will be sustaining. See, we are talking economic side of angle. Okay, நீங்க வந்து பாவம் பார்க்கறது எல்லாமே வேலைக்கு ஆகாது. Okay, that's different angle. So what is Arthasastra? Artha means not wealth alone. We have to consider the well-being of the individuals. Please highlight. Because it's a one-word paper for us. So I request you to highlight a few words. So when you talk Artha, it is all aspects of the material, well-being of the individuals. Arthasastra, the science of Artha, which means material prosperity, which means the means of subsistence of humanity. It's not talking about wealth, primarily wealth, and secondly, they go for land. Okay, what do you mean by wealth here is talking about the well-being of the individuals, humanity. And the main focus here is for the sustainability and fruitful management of the land. Is it okay? Importance is ultimately our main occupation is agriculture, so we have to strengthen that. Already strengthened are okay, but still we have to strengthen that to secure rich harvest and boost state revenue. State means we are not talking about the state. We are talking about the main government. State meaning a state government and state has a different meaning, which means central government, state government, everything will be covered. So state is on the whole, okay, not separately state. And taxes should be equal, fair, and simple for all to understand. So when you talk about Kautilya's writing, he was focusing on different areas. So multidisciplinary discourse, which was focusing on politics, economics, military strategy, diplomacy, function of the state, social organization. This all put together we have called as 4 organs now. What are the 4 organs? Legislative, executive, judicial, and military. All these 6 things are now pulled up into 4 organs. So when you talk about Kautilya's writing, it is not only focusing on these areas, it's relating to statecraft, political science, economic policy, and military strategy. What do you mean by true kingship? Okay, ஒரு கிங்னா எப்படி இருக்கணும்? எப்படி இருக்கணும்? அவரை பத்தி யோசிக்க கூடாது. Over personal ambition, which means what? He should not think about himself. He should think about which should be prioritized. Think about the people. Okay. And when you talk about the king, it's not only the king he is acting, we have different ministers under him. So if we talk about prime minister, I'm not talking about any person's name. If I talk about the position as a prime minister, he's not acting individually. I mean, there is many department. That department is giving recommendations. That department is giving advices, and accordingly, the prime minister is reacting. And obviously, the prime minister has the powers. Constitution of India, prime minister என்னென்ன powers, individual powers இருக்குனே இருக்கு. But அதுக்காக எல்லா ரூலிங்கும் வந்து prime minister பண்ண முடியாது. He is the Prime Minister, which means he has the rights to take the powers, not individually, but ஒரு சில cases இருக்கு. Okay. So seven vital elements are there. What are those? What are those seven? The king. Okay. Then ministers, we have farmlands, foresters, treasury, military, and the allies, which means maintaining the relationship between the foreign. So what are the allies? Okay. So during this time, we have to talk about the shift in economic history of India. Because if you talk about big buildings or big museums like or big libraries like or railways, எவ்வளோ பெரிய building எப்படி கட்டி வச்சாங்க? Have you ever thought why the train tickets are so very less? I'm not talking about Vande Bharat train or I'm not talking about Tejas. Okay, leave of Tejas, leave of Vande Bharat. If you compare, probably I'm traveling Chennai to Trichy, two of Rome. Okay, if you compare Pallavan, if you compare Tejas, and if you compare Vande Bharat and Tejas somehow more or less like 100 or 150 rupees difference is there. Okay, I remember because I often book tickets. For Tejas, I remember it comes around some 1100 something. Okay, 1100 something. For Vande Bharat, it comes around some thousand, closer to 1300. Okay, so it's a bigger difference. It's heavy, it's costly, but still a bigger difference. But it's the same thing if you do it in Pallavan, it comes around like some 500 to 600. ஏன் the difference? அதே ஊருக்கு தானே போறோம். Okay, நீங்க ஏன் ஏசி டிக்கெட்ல போறீங்க? Correct தானே? See, if you travel in this train, the fare is different. If you travel, why you fix this different rate? Because we need to give the feel. You're traveling in a train, that feel is given. You need not carry the food and go. Okay. இப்ப என்ன தெரியுமா problem? If you go for local ticket means I'm not talking about the word local, I'm talking about the sleeper class tickets. With this 500 rupees ticket, மூணு பேர் போயிட்டு வரலாம். மூணு பேர் போலாம். Okay. Which means what? Three tickets is what? Equal to one ticket. Why this three tickets is equal to one ticket and why not this is happening in Tejas and Vande Bharat? Tejas and Vande Bharat இப்ப கொண்டு வந்திருக்காங்க. Pallavan and other trains, whatever it is, everything is there from long back and train வரும்போது it is being shared equally within the sleeper class and other class. அப்ப இந்த railways யார் கொண்டு வரா? பிரிட்டிஷ் தானே. There is a shift in the economy. ஓகே, அதனால தான் ட்ரெயின் டிக்கெட்ஸ் வந்து கம்மியா இருக்கு. அந்த காலத்துல கட்டி வச்சுட்டாங்க, அந்த காலத்துல லோகோமோட்டிவ்ஸ் பண்ணி வச்சுட்டாங்க. இப்ப இந்த காலத்துல பண்ணும்போது whether it's stages or Vande Bharat or other thing, there is a difference in the fares. நீங்க இனிமே ரோடு போட்டு பாருங்க, நேஷனல் ஹைவேஸ்ல ரோடு போட்டு டோல் சார்ஜஸ் எக்ஸ்ட்ரா போடணும். நீங்க சென்னை டு திருச்சி, if you take a highway, now we have this 2000 rupees pass. Okay, leave of that. In case இந்த 2000 rupees pass வரலனா பல்லவன்ல போயிட்டு வர கேஷ் கூட பத்தாது, டோல் சார்ஜஸ் கட்டணும். Okay, something I think 650 or 700 rupees it comes around. Only for paying the toll charge. நடுவில் ரெண்டு பேர் போட்டு வந்தா நாங்க பிரியாணி சாப்பிடுவோம், டீ சாப்பிடுவோம். அதெல்லாம் எங்க போச்சு? Okay. Two sub periods we had to consider. As I was discussing this, the East India Company was ruling us between this period, see, exactly like 100 years. Okay. And British government took over from where? The East India Company. That's what I was telling. They were having this treaty like. And from 1858 to 1947, British government was doing. That's why we call that period as British India. So which was a starting point. British was entering. Okay. See, we are not talking in a negative angle. Please remember, we are talking in a positive angle. In a negative angle, British negative we are talking in a positive angle. Positive angle in the sense that India economy was actually growing. India was self-reliant. India was prosperous. Everything is okay, but we are not globalized. Okay, in what the program is becoming globalized. Probably before continuing this one, you might have heard of this company Raymond's Routings. Okay, அவங்களோட ஹிஸ்டரி கொஞ்சம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க, சாக்கு பை சொல்லுவாங்க, ப்ரௌன் கலர் சாக்கு பை. இந்த பீரியட்ல தான் வந்து என்ன பண்றாங்க, இந்த சாக் பேக்ஸ் வந்து அவங்க ட்ரேட் பண்ண ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணாங்க. எப்ப தெரியுமா? தட்ஸ் அரௌண்ட் தட் 1942 to 90, not 1942, sorry, 1935 to 1942 or 47, 45 maybe. ஏன்னா இந்த டைம்ல தான் வார் நடக்குது. ஓகே, அந்த டைம்ல வந்து சாக் பேக்ஸ்ல வந்து ரேமன்ஸ் ஃபேமஸ் ஆகுது. ஓகே, they were utilizing this opportunity. Okay. Likewise, I remember Mahendra, another one company, 1947 or 46 they started, just before independence. And Samya, the Birla company, Aditya Birla company. See, why we are talking about all this is before India got independent itself, our development path was very well good. It was very well going in a good path. Only thing was, நம்ம அவங்க கீழே அடிமையா இருக்கக்கூடாதுங்கிற ஒரு பாயிண்ட் வச்சுதான் நம்ம டீல் பண்ணோம். See, I'm not talking in a negative aspect. I'm talking fully in positive aspect. Okay, because I'm online, I have to convey this. Okay, market for finished goods was there. Okay, so many things were happening. Industrial revolution was happening in the later part of the 18th century, and manufacturing capabilities were there because of the British rule. This was increasing, manifold increasing, and consequences. They need to augment raw material supply. So we need raw material, right? And finding markets for the finished goods. You produce everything, but where are you going to sell it? There's no market, you cannot sell it. Okay. And virtual reverse of the nature of India's foreign trade from an exporter of manufacturers to an exporter of raw materials. Please highlight. Instead of going for exporter of manufacturers, they were focusing on exporter of raw materials. Okay, because we have so much of raw material in our country. Okay, let me take over. What made exports costlier? Imports cheaper. Because what happened? Exports costlier. British policy, what did they do? They were imposing high tariffs on Indian exports. இந்தியால இருந்து வெளியே போதா டேரிஃப் அதிகம். அப்ப என்ன பண்ணீங்க? நீங்க மேனுஃபேக்சர் பண்ண மாட்டீங்க. ரா மெட்டீரியல் சப்ளை பண்ணீங்க. அது மாதிரி பிளான் பண்றாங்க. Okay. Indian goods automatically, because it becomes costlier, Indian goods automatically lost their competitiveness. There was a sharp fall in the external and domestic demand for Indian products. Obviously, that was a destruction of Indian handicrafts and manufacturers. You don't produce in India. If you produce in India and you export it, it becomes costlier because tariff is fixed high. Instead of producing, you give the raw materials. ரா மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் போச்சுன்னா அவன் எந்த ஊர்ல அதை ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்றானோ அந்த பிராண்டை தான் கொடுத்துவான். கரெக்டா? தட்ஸ் வாட் ஹேப்பனிங். ஓகே, அதனாலதான் நம்மளுக்கு வந்து ரொம்ப கோவம் வர ஸ்டார்ட் ஆச்சுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. Okay, reason for adverse consequences. Probably British was focusing in a different interest. Competition was there because many were not doing handmade. They shifted to machine-made goods. So when you want to compensate the demand, it was able to do it only with the machine-made goods. Okay, and there was a shift of patterns of demand because foreign goods are Indian good. Foreign food only. That's why we have this kadar adai, idalam problem along with it. Okay, and shift with Western culture and ways of life. Totally by shifting. Final impact is it damaged the long established production structure, far reaching economic and social consequences there. It destroyed the internal balance of the traditional village economy, and obviously everything was going. So agriculture, handicrafts, எல்லாமே வந்து like ஒரு blending மாதிரி போக start ஆச்சு. Manifestation, which is the ultimate consequences. எங்க focus ஆகும்? எங்க அடிபடும்? Employment தானே. Okay. Second, I'm not going word by word. Okay. Second, increased pressure on land. Obviously, if you hold a land, you have to divide that and give. And obviously, we were using the land for agriculture. But now there's no agriculture business now. There's no occupation on agriculture. What you have to do? You have to use that land for another purpose. Okay. And poverty. Third one, imports. Yes, cheap Britain. Okay. Fourth one. So system of land tenure interest in favor of the British rule. நீங்க land வச்சிருக்கீங்களா எனக்கு கொடுத்துடணும். அந்த மாதிரி. Fifth one, excessive pressure on land. Demand for land under tenancy rights. இதுவும் அந்த point தான், more or less. Sixth one, virtual collapse of Indian agriculture. So absentee landlordism, high indebtedness for agriculture, எக்கச்சக்கமா கடன் வாங்குறது, all these were there. So six drawbacks, six ultimate thing. Then we'll go for stagnated industrialization during the colonial era. So before 1850, there was no existence of factory-based production. But after that, we were growing both in a positive angle and in a negative angle. Again, we'll focus here with respect to the positive angle. This is happening between 19th century. Okay. The modern industrial enterprises was growing. In the business, cotton milling business. Okay. 1930s, actually, if you talk about car production, automobile production, how they will measure this? They will not go for the colors of car. They will not go for the models of the car. Mahindra is producing this many number of cars per year. Sometimes they go for, if you talk that, it's you have heard of term yarns, YARNS. Why yarns not null gender? That will be kept on a machine. See, this is a machine like, can you find it? It will be like, there'll be some operations happening and it will be, see, this one is rod like. The rod are and that will be making the cloth. Okay. Actually, my network connection is a bit poor. So this is actually it will happen like this. This is what you call as spindles. Okay, see cotton spindles. High-res stock photography and images. Cotton spindles. So இந்த மாதிரி எத்தனை இருக்கோ that will show you how far your business is. Okay, ஒரு ஒரு இது 10 இருக்குன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், that is giving a different meaning. You are doing in a very, very small angle. Probably ஒரு practice பண்ணீங்கன்னா, see how much was in the year 1930? I remember 9 million spendings. அப்ப எவ்வளவு பெருசு இல்ல? See, it's the fifth position globally, not India wise. Fifth position globally. We are talking about the status of India. So one business was cotton milling part. Okay, second business is jute mills, jute. Okay, sal kaidu adellame. So it expanded rapidly in and around Calcutta, and late status, we go for the status, we use it for ropes and other products and all. Late 19th century, a large share of the international market, and end of the 19th century is the largest it was first, okay, largest in the world in terms of amount of raw jute. Is it okay? Let me continue. Other developed industries, we were in brewing industry, paper milling, leather making, matches and rice milling also. And apart from that, we were there in iron industry also. We were ranking 8th. This is all happening when? 1930. All before independence. Another year, between this 1930s, okay. Then miscellaneous, beginning of the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century means 1900. Some industry even reached global standards just before the Great Depression. The 12th largest industrialized countries on the naming of the 12th largest. This is the positive side. Now let us go for the negative side. Producer good industries did not show high levels of expansion. Producer is agri-related. There was a discouragement. There was a pressure on policy formulation. Probably have to compete with the English producers. Okay. Insufficient growth, or you can say that was a slow progress. So insufficient that we cannot have a general transformation in economic structure, and NDP, okay, domestic product, was barely reached around 7% even in 1946. And the share of factory employment in India was also very small. How much? 0.4% of the total population. Okay. Over small. Segment 2. Post-independence. Post-independence is not till date. We are considering till 1991. After that only we started with the push of our economy. So till 1991 we'll discuss. Status at the time of independence. There is probably that 1 year period like rural inhabited by mostly illiterate people. Please highlight. Recently asked in the exam, who were exceedingly poor. Poverty line poverty line தாண்டி என்ன சொல்றதே தெரியாது. மால் நியூட்ரிஷன் இதெல்லாம் எக்கச்சக்கமா ப்ராப்ளம்ஸ் எல்லாம் ஃபேஸ் பண்ணிருப்பாங்க. Deeply stratified society, I want to highlight this word, by extreme heterogeneity on many counts. Like you cannot, if you want to group it, okay, so if you want to group like gender wise, you can easily say male, female, now transgender, okay. But if you want to stratify the society, we cannot clump and say this is okay, race wise, caste wise, clear சொல்ல முடியல. அந்த ரேஸ்குள்ள போனா பாவர்ட்டி லைன்குள்ள இருக்காங்க, பாவர்ட்டி லைன் பிலோ இருக்காங்க, எக்கச்சக்கமான கன்ஃபியூஷன்ஸ். ஓகே, அதெல்லாம் ஸ்ட்ராட்டிஃபை பண்ணவே முடியல. ஸ்ட்ராட்டிஃபை மீன்ஸ் we cannot group it. Stratify means grouping. Okay. And the literacy rate was just above 18% and barely 32 years of life expectancy. Please highlight. Okay. If you ask during this period, if you ask your lady, okay, what was their life expectancy? 85 cash. Okay. But during this period, what was life expectancy? 32 years. Again, நீங்க டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணி பாருங்களா, உங்க ஃபேமிலியில எத்தனை பேருன்னு சொல்லிட்டு கேஷுவலா கேளுங்க. டோன்ட் டேக் இட் பர்சனலி. கேஷுவலா கேட்டு பாருங்க. சொல்லுவாங்க பிறந்தது 18 பேரு, ஒரு 3 மாசம் 4 மாசத்துல 2 பேர் இறந்து போயிட்டாங்க. அதுல சொல்லுவாங்க 2 பேர் வயித்துல இருக்கும்போது இறந்து போயிட்டாங்க. சோ எத்தனை பேரு? அந்த 18 16 பிறந்து ஒரு வயசுல ஒரு பையன் இறந்து போட்டா, 2 வயசுல ஒரு பொண்ணு இறந்து போச்சு. எத்தனை? 14. அதுக்கு பிறகு ஒருத்தன் 18 வயசுல இறந்து போனா. அப்படி பார்த்தா லாஸ்ட் இந்த 18 கிட்ஸ்ல எத்தனை பேர் தெரியுமா இருப்பாங்க? 3-4 பேர் இருப்பாங்க. பாப்புலேஷன் ஏன் வர்றாங்க? See, what I'm trying to say here is 1951, what was the life expectancy? Only 32 years. And the period of பாத்தீங்கன்னா, why is only 32 years? ஏகப்பட்ட disease. மருந்து இல்லை. See, for cancer மருந்து இருக்கு. With the help of that, you can sustain your life. See, everybody has to get it. But you can sustain your life. For example, 5 years, 10 years, எக்கச்சக்கமான மெடிசன்ஸ்னால sustainability இருக்கு. Sustainability only அந்த டைம்ல. So, it was just 32 years. 32 years நீங்க என்ன பிளான் பண்ண முடியும்? Okay. So dominance by the Nehruvian model. So like a redistribution and industrialization also was there. It was directed by the state. So state was completely taking the control. state was like in fear. In fear, the British வந்துட்டாங்க நம்மளுக்குள்ள ஒற்றுமை இல்ல. We were not like together. We were all having different wavelengths. We were not working together. அதனால வேற யாரும் நம்ம உள்ள வந்துடக்கூடாதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு என்ன பண்றாங்க பயங்கர ஸ்ட்ரிக்ட். என்ன பண்ணலாம் கேட்டு பண்ணு எல்லாம் பண்ணலாம் கேட்டு பண்ணு யாரு கவர்மெண்ட் கிட்ட அதனால that's what we call as economic redistribution or industrialization. We have to make it as a support. யார் பண்றா இதெல்லாமே state. Actually, we were dominating the people. We, in the sense, the government was taking a complete rule. அதனால தான் economy வளரல. So we had to make it privatized in 1991 privatization. This was all the lessons like happening. Okay. Centralized economic planning was there and direction was there. So whatever the rule is being taken, it is taken all over India. It was not like this state in the gender in the மாதிரிலாம் பார்க்கவே இல்லை. Then we started with this 5-year planning commission, which is called as Planning Commission of India, 5-year plans. So every 5 years they'll be introducing this one. Okay, every 5 years. So we started in 1951. அதுக்கு பிறகு எப்ப அந்த LTG வருது 1991. So it's like 61, 71, 81, 91, 40 periods. கிட்டத்தட்ட 8 இது வந்து 8 5 years plan. Okay, so like we have to develop, we have to implement, and we have to monitor. So that was the main thing. And ideology of industrialization is early days of independence. Central government was taking the complete authority because we need to define our own strategy, economic strategy. We need to carry out necessary investment. Probably we had to coordinate with the private sector and all. Rapid industrialization was there, and planned modernization was also there. And bureaucrats and technocrats were like they are blooming like okay. Then we had to go for this industrial policy resolution, which year 1948. It's an expanded role for the public sector. Please highlight. Whatever was done, it was under the government's okay, government's. So whatever was done, they were doing it, but still private sector was given importance, but you had to get the license. License Raj, license Raj. Okay, you have to give the importance, you have to get the license. அது பார்த்தா லைசன்ஸ் ராஜ் கேன்சல் பண்ண பிறகு தான் நம்ம எக்கனாமி க்ரோ ஆகும்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. So still strategic areas was like we have to give importance for atomic energy, arms and ammunition, railways, and state was taking exclusive rights for new investment in some basic industries. So, okay, so let me take over. Then we go for industrial policy, 1950. It's guided by two economic philosophies. One is Nehru's philosophy and another one is Gandhian philosophy. Nehru's philosophy was completely focusing on heavy industry. Gandhian philosophy was focusing on Gandhian philosophy, small scale cotton industry and so on. Then we'll go for 1956 model, industrial policy resolution of 1956. It provided a comprehensive framework because our industry has to be developed lopsided. Lopsided means one-sided. Like relative economic philosophy, like Gandhi and Nehru. This time, 1956 model, the resolution, we are focusing on industrial side. Industrial is heavy hand. Okay. And its guiding principle supported enormous expansion of the public sector. So giving excessive priority to the public sector, weakened, please highlight, weakened the private initiative and enterprise. அதனாலதான் நிறைய கேஸ்ல வந்து என்னாச்சுன்னா எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் எல்லாம் வந்துச்சு. Private investments were discouraged. That was having a long-lasting negative consequences. Long-lasting na எவ்வளவு long-lasting? Almost 5 decades long-lasting. 5 decades அதோட impact இருக்கு. Okay. See, we were studying this 2013 Act, Companies Act, OPC concept, right? 1% company. இந்தியாவில் 1% கம்பெனிங்கிற கான்செப்ட் 2013 ஆக்ட்ல தான் இருக்கும். அதுக்கு earlier இல்லை நம்ம கிட்ட. ஏன் இந்த 1% company concept? If I do a business as a sole proprietor, what's the problem? As a sole proprietor, if any wrong things or if anything bad happens, who's liable? The sole proprietor is liable. If we are running this as a company, 1% company, then who's liable? Company is liable. You're not liable because once you form a company, that's about hybrid of. So if you read the line of OPC, it's a hybrid of corporatization and sole proprietorship, entrepreneurship and corporatization. Okay, so it was having a long-lasting negative consequences. When you go for the foreign side, until the late 1950s, India followed this open foreign investment policy, FIP, so no foreign investment policy, and open trade policy also. 1958, there was a balance of payment crisis, like foreign exchange depletion was happening, and there was tightening of trade because of this, and investment licensing for new investment was reduced. They were not giving licensing because if you want to import the capital goods, then we have to reduce the licensing and all. Okay, and see again, ஒரு பயம் தானே இவ்வளோ நாள் சண்டை போட்டு காப்பாத்தி கொண்டு அந்த ஊரை வந்து திரும்ப இந்த ஃபியர் இருந்துட்டே இருந்தது. அந்த ஃபியர்ல இருந்து வெளியே வந்து it was taking a long time. Okay. So this was happening till 1966. Then between 1950, again in a wider angle, we'll call, see, during that time, see, we have something called as GDP, right? Okay. If you use the term GDP, it's globalized version, we use GDP. But when you talk only about India, we'll call that as Hindu growth rate. Okay. India's annual, average annual rate of growth of GDP is what you call Hindu growth rate. We are not using the terminology now. So it was like the GDP was how much? It was like 3.5%. Then 15 years thrust on capital goods. So we were focusing more on capital intensive products. Like we were planning for dams, power plants, heavy industrialization rather than consumer goods. This was again a problem. நீங்க எங்க ஃபோக்கஸ் பண்ணிருக்கணும் கன்சியூமர் குட்ஸ்ல ஃபோக்கஸ் பண்ணிருக்கணும் அது வந்துடும் சொல்லிட்டு தானா வந்து என்ன பண்ணுவோம் ஃபோக்கஸிங் ஆன் கேபிட்டல் இன்டென்சிவ் தட் வாஸ் ஆக்சுவலி அ டிராபேக் பிகாஸ் வை வி ஃபோக்கஸ் ஆன் கன்சியூமர் குட்ஸ் பட் ஹவ் ஃபோக்கஸ்ட் ஆன் த அக்ரிகல்ச்சர் நம்மளுக்கு டாமினன்ட் அதான் அக்ரிகல்ச்சர் விட்டனால இதெல்லாம் ஃபோக்கஸ் பண்ணனால அதுவும் வாஸ் ஹேவிங் அ லாங் லாஸ்டிங் இம்பாக்ட். Then mid of 1960s, the first major shift, this brought the second plan, gave insufficient priority to agriculture, cutting its outlays. So the agriculture strategy relying mainly on an institution model like land reforms, cooperative societies, and the money. So not much importance was given to technocratic areas, research and development, irrigation. See, nowadays we do so much on research and development, right? Poultry farming, agriculture, and subsidies and so many things are being provided or being supported by the government. Those days that was not there. இதெல்லாமே come across பண்ணவங்களுக்காக தான். So 1960 to 60, 1966 and 67, there was a negative agri growth. Why? The consequence. Earlier we were not focusing on that. Okay. And not only that's the reason, no rain, monsoon failure. And 2 consecutive droughts, poverty. Okay. Consequences, serious food problem. Yes, please highlight this one. So to get the support from where? US. US was providing. US வந்து அவங்க நேஷனல் பாப்பானா நம்ம நேஷனல் பாப்பானா நம்ம got paid, not in employment, not in agriculture, only to give food. Got paid, not in employment, not in agriculture, only to give food. அந்த அளவுக்கு நம்ம ட்ராப்ல வந்துருக்கோம். Okay. And need of the hour. Definitely we had to what? We had to push for the next level because we cannot always live on USS. So we had to push for the next level. So we are jumping to food grain production. So highest priority was given to increase productivity in agriculture. That was a kickstart. So ultimately, இப்போ நம்ம வேலை செய்யலன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன் ஒண்ணுமே இருக்காது. You have seen this என்ன பனைமரம் இன்னும் கொஞ்ச நாள் தான் இருக்கும் பனைமரம்லாம் இட் வில் பி தேர் ஃபார் 100 years அப்புறமா அவ்வளவுதான் அதெல்லாம் காரி ஆயிடுச்சு எங்கேயுமே பனைமரம் பார்க்க முடியலன்னு சொல்றாங்களே next 5 or 10 years or probably after 100 years அது வந்து எக்ஸ்டிங்க்டா போயிருக்கும் கரெக்டா பனைமரம்னா என்னன்னே தெரியாது அது இல்லாத ஒரு ஓ அப்படியா அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க யாராவது அதை வச்சு டைனோசர் மாதிரி படம் எடுத்தாதான் இருக்கு இந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும் இதுல இந்த பிரேஸ் எல்லாம் சொல்லுவாங்களே பனைமரத்துக்கு கீழே வந்து தண்ணி குடிச்சாலும் கல் குடிச்சாலும் சொல்லுவாங்க இந்த பிரேஸ் எல்லாம் நீங்க யூஸ் பண்ண முடியாது ஏன்னா பனைமரம் என்னன்னு எனக்கு தெரியல okay extinct item so that's a new way of change so you have to rely less on earlier effects like institutional change you should not focus where you have to focus you have to focus on agriculture and especially we were focusing on okay now we'll go for green revolution so we are focusing on agri that's why the revolution is called as the green revolution so what we are doing is we were bringing new farm technologies in the seeds quota high yield how you can intensively use water fertilizers pesticides and how can use the technology for food shortage and all. And there was a drastic change which led to extra stringent administrative controls. நீங்க என்ன பண்ணாலும் கவர்மெண்ட் கேட்டு பண்ண சொல்லி there was actually the government was very stringent. Okay, so it's introduced by the government applicable on both trade and industrial licensing. Launched a wave of nationalization. Please highlight. Often asked the question. 1969 is a data question. Please highlight. 1969, how many banks were there? Nationalization of banks. How many banks were there? 14 banks. And 1980, we have another 6 banks. So totally 20 nationalized banks. Okay. Actually, don't take it as 20. 14 plus 6, 1969, 1980. And that was a wide sweep of the interventionist policies that came to exist in the 1960s. Then we go for 1965 to 1981. Productivity declined. Because the economic performance was not helpful, why? We started focusing on agriculture, green revolution, but we left out industrial policy. We had to balance this one, and contributed to the decelerated growth. Why? Don't focus on license culture. Learning. We learned from our mistakes. The autocratic policies. Autocratic means what? Boss program. External shock was there. Moon World War. major droughts in the 2 years. Okay, oil shocks, oil spilling, okay, and other notable points you can take it here is as a closed economy, the opportunities were missed and equity policies were not considered. So we were not discussing on the wealth creation incentives and all. And when we talk about the equity driven policies was anti-growth, not growing, anti-growth. Okay? And this was the need of the hour. We have to talk about 1969 Act, what is the Monopoly and Restrictive Trade Policy Act. இப்போ இந்த ஆக்ட் இல்ல, instead we have an act called as Competition Act. You might be aware of it. Competition Act. Okay. Competition Act வந்தது 2002. இப்போ காம்படிஷன் ஆக்ட் வரப்போகுது. எப்ப இருந்து பேசிட்டு இருக்காங்க? 2020ல இருந்து பேசிட்டு இருக்காங்க. Okay. Probably in another couple of years you might be expecting. இன்னும் வரல. When you go for a final level, you may get this. In your final syllabus, you have Competition Act as your law subject. Okay, அதுல வந்து probably 2 or 3 years வந்துச்சுன்னா you might be studying the new act. To understand Competition Act in a better way, you need to understand this act called as monopoly and restrictive trade practices. So it was regulating large firms which was having market power. How? By restricting license and capacity expansion and okay, result. So obviously you have to get so many licenses, you have to whatever you want to do, you have to get the license from the government. So automatically now capital intensive what I was limiting my expansions. Okay. Then we'll go for 1967. Exclusive preference was given to small scale sector. Now only we come for the Gandhian philosophy. So we have two economic philosophies, right? We were focusing on Nehruvian philosophy, Nehruvian model, which was what? Discussing on industrial side. Now this year onwards, we are focusing on small sector. And India would UTA on the first agree, then artisans. Okay. So objective is promotion of this small scale industry. Probably much have heard of this MSMEs on the cost of total income. Okay. So there is an argument which is how far you can encourage labor intensive economic growth. Okay, small scale industry la the labor intensive definitely labor intensive because when you say small scale, I am running a very small business and how many are working under me? 10 or 12. நீங்க ஏன் அவ்வளோ பெரிய இண்டஸ்ட்ரி 1000 பேர் ஒர்க் பண்ற மாதிரி நீங்க இமேஜின் பண்றீங்க? 1000 பேர் ஒர்க் பண்றதுக்கு ஒரு தெருவுல 4 சின்ன பிசினஸ் போட்டுமே, 4 பேர் இல்ல 4 பேர் ஒர்க் பண்ணட்டுமே, எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் போயிடுமா? இந்த மாதிரி டாக் வந்துச்சு. பட் எக்ஸ்க்ளூசிவா பண்ணது வந்து 1991 பிறகுதான். Okay. So exclusion, all big firms were excluded from labor intensive industries because when you talk about big firms, we cannot talk about labor over there. We have to talk about missions. These were not excluded. So status, yes, this was actually a negative point. We were not able to compete in the world market because everything is becoming labor intensive. Actual mission and labor, if you compare in the labor intensive market, effect will be more. If I'm making a water bottle, if I make this water bottle handmade, ஒவ்வொருத்தரும் ஒவ்வொரு மாதிரி வேலை செய்வாங்க அந்த வாட்டர் பாட்டில. இதே வந்து ஐ மேக் இட் மிஷின் மேக் ஒரே மாதிரி இருக்கு. இன்கேஸ் ஒரு 1000 வாட்டர் பாட்டில்ஸ் ஒரு பல்க் ஆர்டர்ல போகுது, 1000 வாட்டர் டிஃபெக்ட்னா டிஃபெக்ட் லைக் லிட் இஸ் நாட் கெட்டிங் க்ளோஸ் ப்ராப்பர்லி டிஃபெக்ட் தான். பட் இதே வந்து நீங்க ஹேண்ட்மேட்ல போனீங்கன்னா, லேபர் இன்டென்சிவ்ல போனீங்கன்னா எல்லாமே வந்து ஒவ்வொன்றும் ஒவ்வொரு மாதிரி இருக்கும். யூ கேனாட் சே திஸ் இஸ் ஹேவிங் திஸ் டிஃபெக்ட், தட் இஸ் ஹேவிங் தட் டிஃபெக்ட் சொல்லவே முடியும். That was the drawback. Okay. And there was a discouragement because we were focusing on stringent labor laws and all. Now also we say that somewhat stringent labor laws ரொம்ப importance கொடுக்க start பண்ணலாம். And counter productivity. So we are not making it good. Okay. So now we'll go for 1980s era of reforms. Yes. Even though we say that between 1950 to 1991, please understand, 1950ல இருந்து 1980ல படாத பாடுபட்டோமா, அப்புறமா இதுக்கு மேல இது வேண்டாம்பா கொஞ்சம் யோசிப்போம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நெக்ஸ்ட் ஒரு 10 years யோசிக்க ஸ்டார்ட் பண்றோம். எஸ்பெஷலி வென் ஆஃப்டர் 1985, even though we were having that impact, 1991ல எல்பிஜி வந்தாலும் உடனே அப்படியே டர்ன் ஓவர் ஆயிடுமா? இல்ல அப்படியே உடனே வந்து படத்துல காமிக்கிற மாதிரிலாம் அப்படியே கிளீன் ஆயிடுமா? அதெல்லாம் ஆகாது. We were still suffering for 7 or 8 years. அதனால நம்ம 4 to 5 decades சொல்லுவோம். Almost half a century. So when early 1890s. Yes, now we have to put our efforts. We have to initiate different directions. We have to think in a different angle to restore reasonable price stability through how? Tight monetary policy, one is fiscal moderation, and few structural reforms. Now comes this 8 or 9 years period. This period, please highlight, this is called as early liberalization period. The heading itself is the era of reforms. You remember? The heading itself is era of reforms. 1980 பிறகு நடக்கிறது 1981 to 1989 is the early liberalization, focusing on these three incentives. So you call this as reforms by stealth. Stealth தெரியும் இல்லையா? வேற வழி இல்லாம அடிபட்டு வர்றது. Stealth ன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. வேற வழி இல்லாம அடிபட்டு வர்றது. Okay. So we have to go for a HADOP. HADOP means what? Being independent. Okay. Not widely publicized nature. Subsequent higher growth during 1980s, how it was done. We are actually making some biases in policies that have to be reversed. Sixth plan period, 1980 to 1985 was the sixth plan period. Adala Hindu growth rate in the term poetry. GDP use it was 5.7%. Sixth plan period between this 1985 to 1990 it was 5.8%. And we were focusing on three areas mainly. One is industry, one is trade, and please highlight taxation. வரி வாங்குறது அப்பதான் ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகுது. ஏன்னா the government has to grow, the government needs revenue. Where the government is getting the revenue? Tax தான் போடணும். அப்பதான் tax வருது. Tax வரலன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. அப்பதான் ரொம்ப சீரியஸா கொண்டு வராங்க. If you go for the Income Tax Act, we have this act from the year 1961. Income Tax Act, Finance Act, I'm talking. So we have this skillful exchange rate mechanism, foreign exchange rate mechanism. We'll go for industrial policy initiatives directed towards removing constraints on growth, creating a more dynamic industrial environment. We'll go for the initiatives. License ராஜ் இருந்தா தானே ஃப்ரீடம் கொடுங்க. எப்போ டீலைசன்சிங் பண்றாங்க? 1985. Not for all, only for 25 broad categories of industries. Later that they were extending. Okay, only for 25. Please make a note by that. Data question paper. Broad banding, okay, like you give flexibility and rapid licenses, fresh licensing program. See, I'm making an automobile with a four-seater. Okay. Earlier, before this period, if you want to make an automobile, car வந்து seven-seater car பண்ணா போய் license வாங்க. நான் பண்ணுவேன், நான் யோசிச்சு பாருங்க. நான் என்ன பண்ணுவேன்? இந்த business எனக்கு இப்படியே இருக்கணும். யோசிப்பேன். Now, if you want to make a seven-seater car, no need to get the license. You just confirm to the government we are making this. You're not going to get fresh licensing, yeah. Then engineering side, probably you can go for any other product mix and all. Okay. So switching between production lines, between trucks and car. As I was telling, four-seater car and the seven-seater car, they are describing here with trucks and car. See, Mahindra is going for trucks, Mahindra is going for cars, Mahindra is going for sedan models, SUVs, cars, Jeep models. And now there is a raise in the MRTP asset limit with respect to the larger firms. 1985-86 limit was earlier 20 crores. They increased to how much? 100 crores. Data person, please make a note of it. We have GST now. Earlier we did not have like GST specific like GST. We had excise duty. We have value-added taxation. We had service tax, and there was something called as modified VAT. Okay, this is called multi-point excise duties. Then establishment of SEBI, which year? 1988. We have already done in the law topic. Expansion of this open general license called as OGL list. This is for the which year part? 1990, which means the number of capital goods items reaching almost 1,329. And we were giving more introduction and expansion of export incentives. Realistic level at the exchange rate was there, and price and distribution control mechanism on cement and aluminium. Not on all the industries, please make a note. Only on cement and aluminium was abolished. Okay. அப்படின்னா legally fix பண்ணிக்கலாம் price அப்படின்ட்டு. Then rupee depreciation based on real exchange rate. Then about 30% from this year to this year. So there was a clear shift and introduction of tax cut policy. So எவ்வளோ வந்து budget குள்ள இருக்கணுங்கிறதுக்காக. So they were reducing the tariff and all. Okay. So this was having the effect on the sectors, private sectors. Investments were inhibited. Obviously, what? Now I am planning. Okay, நம்மளே ஓன பிசினஸ் பண்ணா என்ன? இந்த ஜிஸ்ட் வந்து அது எப்போ தெரியுமா? 1991க்கு முன்னாடி கொண்டு வரான். இது வேணா 1991க்கு போகணும் அப்படின்னா. So reasons, licensing policy was convoluted, which means changed. Private sector reservation was changed. Excessive government controls was changed. Reservation of goods to small scale sector. I don't have employment. When I plan for my own business, பெருசா பிளான் பண்ண முடியும் அம்பானி மாதிரி சின்னதாக ஒரு 10 பேர் வச்சு வேலை செய்யறது பெரிய விஷயம். Okay, then excessive price and distribution controls were changed. So when you go for the public sector, what the public sector was doing? When you go for the public sector was obviously planning for manufacturing and service sector, but that was not sufficient. Okay. inefficiency, because of this inefficiency, because of the government was taking in an inefficiency, because of this inefficiency, because of the government was taking in a different way and bureaucratic procedures. What is bureaucratic? You have to apply for so many things. How many have studied in scholarship scheme? In the scholarship, certificate, so many procedures are there. What is this bureaucratic now? Bureau, step by step. Bureau means step by step. Okay. So you can just have a look. So something about MRTP Act. Some restrictive conditions has to be there. Okay, we have to create a barriers. Everybody cannot enter, right? Everybody should not enter. அப்போ என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு சொல்லி control எடுக்க முடியாம போகும். And there is a diversification and expansion for large industrial houses. We have to take import controls. How? We have to levy tariffs, customs duties, tariffs, quotas, and quantitative restrictions. You cannot import too many quantities inside India. அப்போ நம்ம ஊர்ல பண்ற goods, okay, only certain number of quantities. Okay. So what's the impact? Imports and foreign competition was restricted. Okay, obviously its import is blocked, and FDI was also blocked. What is FDI? Foreign direct investment. And excessive regulations also hindered growth. Recommend regulation in the how can I grow? I couldn't grow. So overall summary, you can please have a note. Shall I go? Shall I take over? Now we'll go for economic reforms of 1991. Whole set of economic reforms, please highlight. Who was the prime minister over at that time? Narasimha Rao. So Narasimha Rao government. We say as Narasimha Rao government. There was a need for immediate drastic change because we were facing fiscal deficit in the year 1980. So probably you might be knowing what you mean by fiscal deficit. Persistent huge deficits with that was there. 1990 Gulf War, which was actually triggering the oil prices. When we talk about the foreign exchange reserve, it touched the lowest point reserve, almost 1.2 billion. It's sufficient only for 2 weeks period. நீங்க import export பண்ணோம்னா நீங்க வந்து foreign exchange reserve வச்சாதான் பண்ண முடியும். So probably you might be knowing. And we were having how much? Only $1.2 billion. That was not sufficient. That was sufficient only for 2 weeks of import. 2 weeks is just 15 days. Not even 15 days. And too much of tightening of import restrictions, external borrowing, international monetary fund, okay, and crisis of confidence. I don't know how far I can rely on. Okay, like bulging. Then we go for year 1991. A paradigm shift. Please highlight. Overriding role of the state socialist model, which means persistent intervention of government. So this was a lesson to the policy makers of India. 1991 is famous for LPG reforms. It's a major shift focusing towards market orientation and external openness. We were focusing on two objectives. One is to be market friendly, and not only that, market friendly is market oriented, and not only that, please highlight the second one, macroeconomic stabilization. அப்படின்னா அந்த ஜிடிபினா நம்ம ஸ்ட்ராங் ஆகும். எப்போ யோசிக்கிறாங்க பாருங்க, 1991. We are in which year? 2025. Now we are in the fourth question. பாருங்க எவ்வளவு பெரிய சேஞ்ச் தானே. அதுவும் பாப்புலேஷன்ல ஹையஸ்ட் வரும். எவ்வளவு இயர்ஸ்ல? After all, 34 years. Okay, that's why so many are projecting that 2030 will be in the third position, but many are saying 2027 will be in the third position. Germany is apart from too. Okay. Now construction of the reform package. Momentum means what is the need of the hour. The nature of packages, completely mutually supportive reforms. Support பண்ண முடியும், and it is addressing the balance of the payment crisis. And we are focusing on from central direction market orientation. Please highlight, which means what? Don't ask permission each and every time to the government. You take your own decision, which means from central direction to market orientation. How we are going to classify the policy is we have two, one is stabilization and one is structural. When you go for stabilization, it's actually short term in nature. If there is an inflation, deflation. Deflation, it's a short term in nature. So problems of inflation or adverse balance of payment. So this was the case. When you go for a structural change, probably we have to talk about productivity, competitiveness. We have to talk about the structural rigidities. Then we have to talk about the angle of long term. Okay. Reform measures, statistical reform. So we'll go for fiscal reforms. We have to escalate the deficit level. We are deficit, right? Fiscal deficit. I just want. Why the crisis is caused or why it is vital? Because we have to go for the demand compensating. Equilibrium state vara try pannu. Imports changes varano. Okay, this was the difference happening. And how we are going to widen the current account deficit, C18 short term. What were the measures taken to augment the revenues? They were introducing this stable and transparent tax structure, the slab rates and all was introduced. Ensuring tax compliance, நீங்க கரெக்டா டாக்ஸ் எல்லாம் அப்ளை பண்றீங்களா? If you want to get a loan, immediate என்ன கேட்பாங்க? Last years or IT debt is a good one. So they want to stabilize it, okay? Trust on curbing government expenditure. How can you reduce that? In reduction in subsidies and abolition of unnecessary subsidies, தேவையில்லாம தர வேண்டாம். Disinvestment of government's equity holdings. Yes, please highlight. This is what you call as privatization. Okay, government எல்லாமே ஹோல்ட் பண்ணதுக்கு பதிலா கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து கொஞ்சமா ஹோல்ட் பண்ணிட்டு மிச்சம் எல்லாமே பிரைவேட் கொடுக்குறது. And encouraging private sector participation. Nil fiscal deficit. No, yes, they brought up fiscal discipline. Okay, then எப்போ வந்துச்சு 1997 to 98. This was I was telling. 1991 கொண்டு வந்தாலும் almost like 7 to 8 years we were suffering. So 1977, 98 only in a phased manner. Suddenly இல்ல கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா phased manner we brought it to nil fiscal deficit. Okay. So next we'll go for monetary and fiscal sector reforms. The objective is to go for effective and efficient and transparent financial system. To focus is to reduce the burden of the non-performing assets on government banks. What do you mean by non-performing assets? We have given the loan, we have not repaid. That becomes a non-performing asset. Okay. To introduce and sustain deregulation in the interest rate. So what was the measure brought by the government is interest rate liberalization. So interest rate reduce பண்ணுவோம். RBI controls on banks are reduced பண்ணுவோம். You open new private sector banks, you boost bank competition and ease in restrictive controls, reduction in SLR and CRR. What is this SLR? Statutory liquidity ratio and cash reserve ratio. You release this one. Then liberalization, where you want to start a branch. Branch means you want to open a branch or relocate a branch or close a branch. It's very simple. Okay, you can make it very in a easy way. Okay. Then under the recommendations of this Narasimhan committee report, it was introducing a few prudential norms on classification of assets. How you have to classify, how you have to disclose the income, and what are the bad debts, and what are the provisions to be created on the bad debts. So there's a need for the introduction on books of commercial banks also. Then there was a reform in the capital market also. We have to highlight this one. That's why we have SEBI. Okay, reform in the capital, because you hold money, நீங்களே வீட்ல வச்சிட்டு நீங்களே பேங்க்ல வச்சிட்டா எப்படி வளரும்? Okay, obviously if you are investing in bank, it's fine. But investing in bank and getting the interest rate may be good, but one side of the economy இன்னும் வளரணும்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. See, if you invest in bank, if you deposit, it's not investment. We'll not call that as investment. You deposit in bank வந்து, see, for example, actually I leave this in money market. Yourself X, you have 100 rupees. You want to save it. What do? You put it in bank. Okay. Bank as per SLR and CRR ratio. For example, SRR and CLR பத்தி ஒரு 10% ஒதுக்கிடலாம். அப்போ எவ்வளவு வந்து பேங்க் வந்து அவுட் சைடு இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் பண்ண முடியும்? 90% தான் பண்ண முடியும். இதே நீங்க நினைச்சீங்கன்னா 100 rupees பண்ணலாம்ல. So instead of depositing in bank, what you're going to do here? Make it as investment. அப்போ என்னது? Capital market stronger. The investors has to be protected. That's why we have SEBI. It is set up in the year 1988. Already we have discussed this one. Statutorily recognized as a board in the year 1992. It's a mandated independent regulator. That's why we say we have this quasi-judicial nature for this. Okay. The highlight behind this is, shall I take over? The highlight behind this is, it is promoting transparency in mobilizing and allocating the resources. Now, this year, 1991, 24th to July onwards, we have this new industrial policy. The intention behind this is to deregulate industry so that the competitive industrial economy will be improving. So we'll get more competition. If the competition is more, quality will be more. Series of reform. என்னென்ன பண்ணாங்க? License Raj cancel பண்றாங்க. Okay. Almost 80% of the industries license Raj was cancelled except for 18. Then it was reduced to 5. See, in the area, what are the 5 areas? We get this in the exam. Arms and ammunition, atomic substances, narcotic drugs and hazardous chemicals, distilling and brewing of alcoholic drinks. Okay, and cigarettes and cigars. This is under still control of whose department? Health, safety and environment. Okay. So this is about end of license Raj. Then limitedness on public sector. So probably they are now making it private, but still railway transport and atomic energy not completely private. So again, if I talk about Tejas and Vande Bharat, it's not completely private. என்ன பண்றாங்கன்னா the food canteen மட்டும், that is food serving மட்டும் என்ன பண்றாங்க private. Then MRTP Act, obviously we don't have MRTP Act, we have Competition Act. Then de-reservation of goods for exclusive production by small scale industries. Okay, consequences and then large scale industries are coming inside. Deregulate, de-reservation. Then see, when I go directly for small scale industry, obviously unemployment may be reduced, but the problem here is we cannot complete globally. அப்போ ஒன்று வேணும்னா ஒன்று விட்டு ஆகணும் இல்லையா? உன்னை லூஸ் பண்ணாதான் உனக்கு ஒன்று கிடைக்கும். என்ன லூஸ் பண்றாங்கன்னா ஸ்மால் ஸ்கேல் இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸ் கொஞ்சம் டவுன் ஆகுது. லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேல் இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸ் வேர் மூவிங் பிகாஸ் re-regulating. Okay. Then endless of public sector monopoly in many sectors. So public sectors மட்டும் தான் ஹேண்டில் பண்ணுங்கிறது இல்ல ரெடியூஸ் பண்ணாங்க. I'm not going line by line. Okay. Liberalization of foreign investment. Yes, you can go for see when you talk about this approval, we have something called as automatic approval. There are two types of approval. One is automatic and one is government approval. Hope you might have heard of this term. Automatic approval means to some specific areas you can directly take the foreign investment, foreign direct investment without government's permission. Why? The name itself is automatic. You need not get the permission of the government. You need not get the permission of the RBI. You need not follow the FEMA rules, FEMA's foreign exchange management rules. Why it is? Because it is being liberalized. 51% மேல போகணும்னா you have to get the permission. But there are some areas, for example, like real estate, அதெல்லாமே like prohibited. பாருங்க, retail trade, atomic energy, lottery business, betting and gambling is completely prohibited. Nobody can invest. And there are some areas where you have to get the permission from the government, then you can introduce the market. Okay. Then liberalization of external trade. Okay, so that was a positivist approach given. Then reduction in tariff. So tariff on the this is also maybe a data question. Please make a note. During 1990 to 91, the highest tariff rate was 355%. Then let us come for the last year, 2007 to 2008. How much? Down to 10%. Look for a difference in the. Okay. Some exceptions were like automobile economy in the 100%. Then devaluation of rupee. So rupee was devalued by 18% against dollar. 1994 onwards, all current account transactions, including business, education, medical, and foreign travel, were permitted at market exchange rate. And rupee, yes, please highlight this line. Rupee became officially convertible on current account. Indian currency ka pata value was okay, 1994 onwards. Disinvestment, a very bold step. Please highlight it's a very bold step. எல்லாமே கவர்மெண்ட் கண்ட்ரோல் கவர்மெண்ட் ஹோல்டிங் இல்லாம கம்ப்ளீட்டா என்ன பண்றாங்க கவர்மெண்ட் இஸ் டீஹோல்டிங் இட் that is disinvestment. So there came a greater economy in decision making, greater autonomy means private sectors are booming. Okay. And the budgetary support of to public sector was progressively reduced. So see, when it happens everything is under the control of government, what happens? You cannot directly take all the decisions. See, what do you mean by control of government? You know this holding a subsidiary company concept. There is a company, okay, and this company is holding more than 50%. You call this as holding company and you call this subsidiary company. In case government is holding 50% more of the shares in a company, you call this as PCUs, public sector undertakings. ஆமா இல்லையா? இப்போ எல்லா கம்பெனியும் கவர்மெண்டே 50% மேல வச்சிருந்தா பிரைவேட் செக்டர் அங்க இருக்காது. Which means what every organization is under the control of government. அப்ப எப்படி வரணும்? அதான் break பண்றாங்க. That's what you call as privatization. Okay. Can you just go through to here, please? Go for the trade policy reforms. Trade policy reforms. The main aim on this trade policy reform is to dismantle of quantitative restrictions. Please highlight. Quantitative means how much to import and how much to export. So you want to remove this restriction and we want to focus more on outward oriented regime. Not directly dismantling, which means not directly reducing, it's done phased manner. It's done in a phased manner. And removal of licensing procedure for imports also. And when you go for export side, export incentives are continued. And not only that, because export பண்ணாதான் நம்மளோட economy வந்து develop ஆகும். Because we cannot completely rely on our economy itself. Okay, like self-closed economy வந்து set ஆகாது. For boosting exports. Okay. And export duties are removed because only when export duties are removed, you will plan for exporting. Else, you will not plan for exporting to increase the competitiveness position of Indian goods. We were introducing this exchange rate system called as fixed exchange rate system from the year 1991. Here, rupee was pegged to the value of basket of currencies of major trading partners. July 1991, July 1991, the Indian government devalued the rupee by between 18% and 19%. March 1992, fixed rate ஆகாது. We want to introduce both fixed and floating rate systems. Probably we'll do this the money market concept. Okay, we had two rate of exchange rate system. 1993, the government unified the exchange rate and allowed for the first time the rupee to float. Fixed is different and float is different. 1993 onwards, India has followed a managed floating rate exchange system. Okay. So many key changes were happening. First one, we were now integrating with the global economy. Okay. There was a progressive move towards the market-oriented economy. So we have market-oriented and product-oriented. Unprecedented growth. Yes, beautiful, Allah. Unprecedented growth. We did not predict this much we are going to face it. International competitiveness, especially in auto components, telecommunications, software, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and professional services. Ease of trade controls, like easy way to make it. Stable FDI inflows were there. அதுவே பெரிய highlight தானே. இந்தியால வந்து நம்பி இன்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணலாம்னு வரது பெரிய விஷயம் இல்ல. Stable FDI inflows and substantial portfolio investment also was there. Foreign exchange reserve 8 months. See how much we had. 2 weeks, right? 1.2 billion, I remember. அங்கிருந்து எவ்வளவு ஜம்ப் ஆயிருக்கும்? We can cover the import for 8 months. Largest holding of international reserves in the world. Yes, please highlight. Okay. Service trade surplus was high at 3.7% of the GDP. Robust demand was there for IT and financial services. Lower pressure on the Indian rupee compared to other emerging market economies. Sustainability of the economy was there because the income was increasing. Income increase automatically economy increase better place to deal with global headwinds. Poverty has reduced substantially and increased competition on sectors like banking, insurance, and other financial services. Consequences is obviously we had to go for the negative side also, right? Greater customer choice, increased efficiency and investment in the business and the business. Actually, on the positive angle of negative angle of face. Growth of private players. So ultimately, at one point of time, government may be in a situation where it cannot control the private players. So that may be an issue. Phenomenal growth was there in infra till now. So we are focusing on highways, infrastructure development. Poor good. Steady decline 4 decades in value added share of agriculture and allied activities. இந்த அவாய்ட் பண்றது ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சு. இது வந்து வெளியே வர முடியல. அக்ரிகல்ச்சர் டிக்ளைன் ஆனது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். ஏன்னா அது வளர்க்கும் அந்த கிராப்ஸ் இல்ல, மரம் இல்ல, ட்ரீஸ் இல்ல. Negativity, constraints by high level of fiscal deficits, inflation was all there, and emerging market and developing countries. India's debt was higher than average of 64.5% in the which year? That's now 2022. Okay. So probably yesterday I was discussing with respect to GDP growth rates. Here it is GDP growth with respect to post 1991 is given. So 1991 we were over here. Probably just rule out this one because this is the pandemic period. Pandemic period விட்டுருங்க. எல்லா கண்ட்ரியும் டவுன்ல தான் போச்சு. இதை விட்டுருங்க. One big highlight where not only our Indian economy was talking about this, almost all the nation was talking about India, saying that இது எவ்வளோ இறங்குதோ அவ்வளோ இந்தியா ஃபாஸ்டா க்ரோ ஆகும்னு சொன்னாங்க. அதே மாதிரி க்ரோ ஆச்சு பாருங்களேன். 2020 it was here negative. Almost all the nations are in negative growth only. But in the year 2021, after that, some jump இருக்கும். எப்படி தெரியுமா சென்ஸ் பண்ணாங்க? You see, all the lessons we learned in that 4 decades post-independence till 1991, it was a very big lesson for us. அதெல்லாமே பார்த்துட்டு வந்துட்டோமா, ஹிஸ்டரியில எக்கச்சக்கமா படிச்சு வச்சுட்டோமா. Now what happened is the pressure is creating. இந்த you have played this game, இந்த ஒரு பக்கெட்ல பாலை போட்டு நீங்க எவ்வளவு ப்ரெஷர் கொடுத்தீங்களோ அவ்வளவு ஜம்ப் ஆயிட்டு வெளியே வரும். அந்த மாதிரி தான் இருந்துச்சு நம்ம இந்தியன் எக்கனாமி. அவ்வளோ படிச்சு அவ்வளோ அடிபட்டு என்னாச்சு? we were ready for all the pressures. அதனால பேண்டமிக் டைம்ல வந்து not only our nation, all the nations are facing that, but India was highlighting the example jump. எல்லா நேஷனும் பேசினாங்க. இன்ஃபேக்ட் சொல்லப்போனா நம்ம ஊருக்காரங்க நம்ம ஊரை பத்தி பேசுறதை விட வெளிநாட்டுக்காரங்க தான் நம்ம ஊரை பத்தி பேசினாங்க. செம்ம ஹைலைட்டா. அதனால அது செம்ம ப்ராப்ளம் ஆயிடும். அங்கிருந்து வந்து இப்ப ஜப்பான் சர்பாஸ். And in very short period of time will be the third economy. அதுக்கு பிறகு சைனா பீட் பண்ணணும். டைம் இருக்கும். சைனா ப்ராபப்ளி சைனா அண்ட் யூஎஸ் தே ஹேவ் வெரி ஸ்டிஃப் காம்படிஷன். யூஎஸ் வந்து கொஞ்சம் மிஸ் பண்ணானா சைனா வந்துடும். அது ரொம்ப சின்ன கேப் தானே. டிஸ்கசிங் இந்த earlier class ரொம்ப சின்ன கேப் தானே வந்துடும். பட் சைனாவையும் யூஎஸ் சர்பாஸ் பண்ண நம்ம போறதுக்கு we need like 2 decades, 20 years தேவைப்படுது. ஓகே. ஸோ அப்போ நீங்க நினைச்சு பார்ப்பீங்க மேம் அன்னைக்கு டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணாங்க. Niti Aayog, a bold step for transforming India. It's a planning commission. So far we were saying that planning commission, industrial revolution, அந்த மாதிரி சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தோம். So this was the first year we introduced this concept called as Niti Aayog. It's a FX. FX means what? Independent. FX means independent policy making body. It's a powerful advocate of public investment led advertisement, one of the most important institutions within India's central government. There was a need for the change. We had to go, we had to change the era. Center of attention on market orientation, shrinking roles of government. Please highlight. கவர்மெண்டோட ரோல் குறைய என்ன ஆகும் ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா வந்து வளரும் அடுத்துக்கு அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு சுச்சுவேஷன். Obviously there was a collapse of the planning system. What type of a change பாத்தீங்கன்னா the nature it was changed, the composition was changed, the institution of how it should be governed, how it should be instituted, that was changed. Everything was changed. And how it is changed to NITI Aayog. NITI stands for National Institution for Transforming India. Replaced this planning commission just now recently, first Jan. So major objective is to bring innovative thinking by objective, so by experts. So that they were bringing this federalization. You call this as think tank. Think tank what you call. You do something new. Okay. Other objectives, you build a shared national vision, promote cooperative federalization, develop planning systems on village levels, and ensure national security, focus on vulnerable sections, design long-term strategies, facilitate collaboration with stakeholders, create a knowledge-driven ecosystem, provide a platform to resolve intersectoral. Sometimes it happens. Sector to sector, department to department will face many issues. Maintain a resource center for best practices and monitor and evaluate the progress. Is it okay? And support technology upgradation and necessary actions to advance the national development agenda. So these are the key initiatives given. I'm not going line by line. Probably can highlight this one once asked in the exam. NDAP, National Data and Analytics Platform. Sunya campaign. Okay, this is for air quality. E-Amrit for electric vehicles. IPI, India Policy Insights. Methanol economy for environment. Greenhouse gas effects on the law. Transforming India's gold market. Okay. So impact of change from planning to Niti Aayog. I have discussed this one. Arguments on the weakness of the system. Yes, actually there was an argument. நீங்க பாட்டுக்கு வந்து நித்தி ஆயோகம் சொல்றீங்க ஆல்ரெடி நம்ம இருக்கிறதே மேனேஜ் பண்ண முடியல. That was a question. Limited role. Okay. Niti Aayog is there, but how far it was doing effectively in Pakamod, it was having a negative side also. Limited role, does not produce national plans or control expenditures or review state plannings. Okay, it was trying to transform the India, but we are lagging on all this. Niti Aayog was lagging. The major shortcome was exclusion from the budgeting process. Our budgeting la kondu varave illa neenga transformation sollinga budgeting la pesanolla adha pathi pesave illa. Lacks autonomy. Autonomy means what? No independence. Edavadhu kekna appo government appo ellame government kitta kera government kitta kera enna pannuvom. Sebi அந்த issue illa பாருங்க. It was given the autonomous power, OC power. Okay. Lacks the independence and power to perform as a counterweight voice of development and other things. Now we'll go for the current state of the Indian economy. What is the current state? The primary sector is agriculture. Hereafter we can just take up the speed part. Largest source of livelihood from the date till now. See, during that 1960 we were saying that it's a food deficient nation. You remember we were taking the help of US, PL 480. We were depending on imports and all. So after that, we are the largest producer of milk, pulses, jutes, spices. You may expect this in the exam. Okay, it's complete data only. Half a page, one page data. Now, please, you may expect this in the exam. Largest area planted under wheat, rice and cotton. Largest cattle herd, buffaloes. Herd not all herds, buffaloes. Second largest producer of fruits, vegetables, tea, farmed fish and other things. And sixth largest in Indian food and grocery market. Major producer in Indian livestock and grows large varieties of cash crops. Especially we were focusing on cotton, jute and sugarcane. Declining state in the overall GVA, gross value addition, but still grows in absolute terms. Please highlight this eighth point. When you check with the relative value, it was actually declining, but when you check only the absolute value, it was growing. But you should not check the absolute value. That's why we say the state is declining. 47% of India's population is directly depending on agriculture for living. That was a good one, right? Okay, contributes a significant figure for the GDP and GVA becomes the primary sector for this primary sector, agriculture. 18.8% in 2001 to 2021 to 22 until January 2022. So when you go for calculating GDA and GDP, we'll go for sector by sector. Probably might have done in the problems. For each and every sector, you separately calculate. So when you go for calculating gross value addition, primary sector, this agri sector alone, it was contributing almost 20% here. Okay, this shortly happened. Now we'll go for status of index numbers 2021 to 2022. Base year was, you remember when we were discussing the index number, shifting of index number. So likewise, base year it was 2007 to 2008. On food for rice it was 138.7. For pulses it was 196.2. On non-food grades it was 142.9. Okay. Please make a note of it. It's a data question. Impact. Sustained increase in agriculture output. Food grains also reached this much number of tons and private investment in agriculture. When you go for 2022 to 2023, there was a good growth of 6.5% for rabi sowing and all. The seeds along, highly seeds. What is the measure taken by government? Augment crop and livestock productivity को focus பண்ணாங்க. There were many research and development universities and all for poultries and all. Okay. And certainty of returns to the farmers. You might have heard of this one, minimum support price. தரணும் மினிமமா இந்த விலைக்கு கீழே வந்து farmers விற்க வேண்டாம் அப்படின்னு கொண்டு வந்தாங்க. So that's what been mandated for 23 crops, fixed at 1.5 times of all India weighted average cost of production. எவ்வளோப்பா 1.5 times. It was promoting crop diversification, improving market infrastructure. Like see, when you want to bring it to the market, you need to have the infra. Yeah, so that infra they are talking about, and investment in infrastructure facilities through agriculture infrastructure fund. So far, we did not have this particular name called as fund, infrastructure fund, and there was a shift from food deficient to importing to the dependent nations. And other notable points, yes, India is among the top 10 export of agriculture and allied products, and the all-time peak of this much number of crores during the last 1 year we have spent is what we have earned. Exports of agriculture and processed food products are also there. Agriculture and Processed Food Export Development Authority (APEDA), okay, was brought, and they were completely responsible for the export promotion of reforms. Okay. Adoption of liberalization measures by government, 100% FDI. Please make a note. Not for agriculture, for marketing of food products. Please highlight. And in fruit product e-commerce under the which route part? Under automatically. Which means what? You do not get the permission. You export it, then you disclose. Automatic now. You do not get the permission, but disclosure will be there. Mandated disclosure will be there. Income support to farmers through PM Kisan plan. Fixing of minimum support price at 1.5 times, almost we have done that. And institutional credit will be given for agriculture sector at concessional rates. Launch of national mission for edible oils. And along with that, we have this called as Still for Integrated Development of Horticulture, provision of soil health cards. We have this PKVY. These are not data only. I request you to seriously focus on this. Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. You watch movies and all in theaters. Theaters movie start பண்ணதுக்கு முன்னாடி they will have a small documentary like okay. Agri infrastructure fund where you can go for medium and long term debt financing. Okay. Promotion of farmer producer organization called as FPOs. Yeah, please highlight. Per drop, more drop. What is that? Dripping irrigation. Per drop, more drop. Setting up of micro irrigation fund, initiatives toward agriculture mechanization. Then setting up of ENAM, Pan India Electrical Training Portal. Okay. Then introduction of Kisan Railway logistics. Okay. Creation of startup ecosystem in agri and allied sector. Like to take over. What are the issues we were facing actually? Let me go for the main points of it. If necessary, I'll go for the inside content. Indian agriculture was faced, that is what was being dealt mainly by small and medium farmers because they are dominating. We cannot go for the large scale business. You agree with me? Okay. Probably we are personally doing this avocado. என்னோட ஃபார்ம்ல ஒரு 100 avocados இருக்கு. அதை நான் இங்க எக்ஸ்போர்ட் பண்ணேன். கரெக்டா? 100 avocados only I get it. How can I export that? If I get 100 tons of avocado, then I can spend for export because I need to get license. I need to do the grading work. I need to have quality of farming. See, only the 100 cows I cannot do, but I have 100 tons means I can do. Why I have only 100 number of avocados? Only 100 numbers. Why? என்கிட்ட அவ்வளவுதான் land இருக்கு. Small farmers. Small and medium farmers கிட்ட இருக்கிற ப்ராப்ளம்னால we cannot go in a globalized way. Second is increasing stress on water resource, obviously, and soil fertility. There is a soil report saying probably in the soil fertility India பார்த்தீங்கன்னா another 5 or 7 years தான் better இருக்கும்ங்கறாங்க. After that, we don't know. So you have to protect our soil. Then inadequacy because we don't have a proper infra and other things. And sluggish diversification to high value commodities. We are not very much involved in high value commodities. ஒரு சின்ன crop இருந்தா okay அப்படின்னு manage பண்ணிக்கலாம்னு நினைக்கிறேன். And inadequate adoption of environmental sustainability. We are not introducing new technology and all. Okay. Poor adoption of new agriculture technologies, lopsided marketing practices. We are not effectively doing it. And complexities associated with adaptation to climate change disturbances. We are not effectively doing that. High food price volatility changes variance. Okay. Heavy dependence on monsoons and loss of crops. Issues related to marketing and warehousing. நிறைய farmers எப்படி market பண்ணணும், எப்படி warehousing பண்ணணும், எப்படி stock maintain பண்ணணும் தெரியும். Now it's somewhat growing. You might have heard of this dry fruits, not dry fruits, dry vegetables also. Carrot. Now, in case I'm doing carrot farming, what I can do is I can have the carrot. If I don't sell it, it's going to be a waste. Stale item. What I can do is I can extract, I can dehydrate, and I can maintain, I can store. Okay, இதெல்லாம் இப்போதான் வந்துட்டு இருக்கு. Inability to effectively channelize huge surpluses is there's much of surplus I cannot use it. Inadequate post-harvest infrastructure. I can harvest in lump sum, but I cannot store that properly. And incidence of poverty and malnutrition. So this is all dealing with primary sector. Shall I carry on? Secondary sector, the industrial sector. Primary sector, you remember how much we are contributing for the GAV? 18.8%. Okay. This is as of 2022. When you talk about the industrial sector, it contributes around 30% of the GVA. So that is the share of the informal sector is more than 50% of the GVA. Okay. Then employs more than 12.1 crores of people. When you talk about the industry, it can be manufacturing or heavy industries, fertilizers, or anything. We cannot go line by line. Essentiality, probably we have to focus on the rapid growth of domestic industries, and industrial structures also diversifying now. Key priorities, developing the robust manufacturing system. Robust means we say the state of the art technology. General aspects, manufacturing accounts for 78 of the total production. When you go for GVA at current prices, it is this much billion in third quarter of this year and has contributed around 16.3% to the nominal GVA during the past 10 years. And yes, please highlight, this is often asked in the exam, 8 core industries we have. We are focusing on crude oil, natural gas, coal, refinery products, fertilizers, steel, electricity, and cement industry. Okay. So we have combined an individual performance of production. When you go for the index of industrial production, it comprises 40.2527%, and the index of this year is 142. Manufacturing Purchasers Managers PMI Index, Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. Okay, we have 55.4 at the at the time of Jan 31st, 2023, and we have also this Global Innovation Index. We are ranking 81st to 40th. The 6 years difference, almost 40th range. And what is the role of DP Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade? It's actually formulating and implementing the industrial policies and strategies, and also it's confirming what is the development needs, what's the national objective we have to focus on. And we have some initiative policies also. You remember, we have GST now from which year? 2017. Corporate taxes reduced, and we have brought this Make in India concept, and we have brought many procedures, simplifying the procedures and all, ease of doing business. Okay, probably can make a note of this. We were ranking 63rd in World Bank's annual doing business report. Okay, it is being published annually. It's called as doing business report. Doing business report. Okay, against 77th in 2019. So the 1 year we are in 63rd rank, and we have this national single window system for getting the approvals and services and all. We have this PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan for multimodal structure. so that the logistics cost can be reduced. We have this NLP policy, National Logistic Policy, again to lower the cost of the logistics. And we have this Atma Nirbhar. Again, this is for manufacturing, to increase the manufacturing capability and export competitiveness. This is linked with production linked investment scheme. Okay, this is PLI, Industrial Corridor Development Program. So we are focusing on greenfield industrial regions and other areas and all. And we have FAME India scheme, faster adoption, FAME FA, faster adoption and marketing. So not marketing, manufacturing. M stands for manufacturing and E stands for electric vehicles, hybrid and electric vehicles. Okay. And this is Udyami Bharat for MSMEs and PM Mantra scheme for integrated textile region and apparels, opening up of global investments all over for defense, pension, and so on. Okay, let me take over. FIF, Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal. So we have a shift from earlier we had this FIPB. 2017 landu FIPB concept illa. FIPB stands for Foreign Investment Promotion Board. We don't have that concept. Now we have this Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal. Okay. So the highlight is we have totally 853 FDI proposals were disposed of in the last 5 years. Then we have revision of duties and taxes on export products, RODTEP. Okay, it is replacing existing MEIS. MEIS stands for Mercantile Exports for India scheme. Okay, and talking about the innovation, we are innovating through incubation scheme, hand holding, funding, industry academic partnership, and all. We have national logistic policy already discussed. We have the Startup India scheme. So we name a startup companies like Startup India scheme. And we have public procurement reference to Make in India. Is Make in India, Make for the World concept. Okay. Then the Emergency Credit Link Line Guarantee Scheme, short called as ECL GS, a fully guaranteed emergency credit line to monitor lending institutions. Yes, ultimately we come for the 4.1 era. Yes, please highlight. This is almost the end of the segment. Like 4.1 era, it's a manufacturing transformation, integrates new technologies. All the AI, cloud computing, everything is introduced. National manufacturing policy is introduced, and the ultimate aim is to bring the manufacturing sector percentage to 25% by 2025. It's not the overall GDP, only for the manufacturing. We are in the second sector, right? Secondary sector. 25% of GDP, not GVA. GVA is different and GDP is different. Okay. So India's status, you can just have a look bit later. Statistics from the source DPIIT, FDI inflow of how much US dollar? 58.77 billion in 2021 to 22. But still we have some challenges. Probably the first one, there is no proper infrastructure. There is no proper manpower. We have to rely on imports. Exchange rate volatility is there. When we talk about the MSME sector, it's not much favorable when we go for the credit availability side. Okay, industry locations are established without reference to cost-effective points, like how much it is suitable. That was all not checked. Heavy losses, inefficiency, low productivity is there. Strained labor management relations, loss of man hours. நீங்க கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்களா எக்கச்சக்கமா ஆளுங்களை தூக்குறாங்க லே ஆஃப் பண்றாங்க so that may be the reason like and global supply chain disruptions and uncertainties, inflation and associated macroeconomic developments globally is slowing down, not only we, but still globally slowing down. That's a major issue. Aggressive tightening of monetary policy, high and increasing fuel prices, and mounting presence of informal sector. Is it okay? So second sector over. So let me finish it off. Okay, maximum by 5 minutes, I'll close it. The tertiary sector. Tertiary is service sector. It has become a remarkable future only after post-reform Indian economy. So recently we have this sector called a service sector. What's the highlight of this tertiary sector is first sector primary, then focus on second sector, then focus on third sector. Other bypass connection. First level, third jump on the stage. Which means what? They were not much focusing on manufacturing. They went directly to service sector. So we were bypassing the secondary sector. Okay. Comprises industry producing intangible goods like we are highlighted in services. Another India IT company start ready. Okay. Status, second largest sector of India. Actually, we call this as tertiary. because it bypassed the second sector, because this is second largest sector. Please try to understand, okay? It accounts for almost like how much? 53.89% of GPA. How much lakh crores in 2021, 2020, 21? Fastest growing sector, highest labor productivity, influenced by domestic and global factors, remarkable growth of startups, exceptionally rapid expansion of knowledge-based services like both professional side and technical side. Engineers எல்லாம் கண்ணாபின்னான்னு இருக்கிறாங்க இல்லையா நம்ம ஊர்ல தான் இருக்கிறாங்க எல்லாம். Okay, application of state of the art information technology. Okay, all the state of the art technology we use. Sectors covered, I request you to highlight this one because this is as per the National Industrial Classification 2008. This is being classified as this. Okay, we have 15 activities covered. One is first one. Let me go this one. Let's slowly. Okay, wholesale and retail trade of and repair of vehicles. You don't take everything. Wholesale and retail trade of what? Vehicles. One. We need to store, right? We need to go for, we have to give importance for logistics, right? So transportation and storage. See, because we say transportation, road, infra is developed, national highways is good. Okay. Accommodation and food services. Yes, obviously, when you talk about more of laborers working, make in India, na, அவங்களுக்கு டக்குனு கேட்கணும் என்னோட food service. Information and communication, obviously IT. Okay. Financial and insurance activities, because if you plan for developing a nation, make in India concept, you know, how are you going to focus? Okay. Then real estate activities, professional, scientific and technical activities, administrative and support services. So these are all support services. Now come for the this side. Public administration, defense and compulsory social security, education. So these are all covering only the service side. Human health and social work activities, arts, entertainments, recreation, other service activities, activities of households, maybe like employers and unpublic professionals, so computing, accounting, inventory management, everywhere we use it. Okay, everywhere we use it. Quality control, personal administration, marketing, advertisement, and legal services. When you go for exports and imports, yes, one among the top WTO nations, World Trade Organization members, robust growth in the year November 2022, unshaken during, yes, this is what I was telling. கோவிட் பேண்டமிக் டைம்ல எக்கச்சக்கமான நேஷன்ஸ் வந்து விழுந்து வாரி தத்து தடுமாறி மேல வந்தா நம்ம கேஷுவலா மேல வந்துடும். ஓகே. Reason higher demand for digital support and need for digital infrastructure and modernization. So if you talk particularly with respect to FDI, largest recipient of inflow, FDI inflow, accounted for more than 60% of the total FDI equity inflows, seventh largest recipient of FDI in the top 20 host countries of World Investment Report of United Nations Stat Report 2021-22, highest ever FDI inflows of 84.8 billion US dollars, including the 7.1 billion. What were the steps taken to ensure the liberalization? Liberalize பண்ணோம்ல எப்படி கொண்டு வந்தீங்க 100% automatic. Okay. They were raising the ceiling from earlier it was 49% for insurance company. Now they raised it to 75% FDI. Launch of the single window system, national level one portal line, and enhancement of the FDI ceiling. Don't go for government route. Government route easy தான். Government permission தருவானா நீங்க கேட்கணுமே. போய் லைன்ல நிக்கணும்ல. Why we need to wait for that? Go for automatic. So ultimately we have the conclusion. I request you to go through. So that's about this topic.